It's no secret that we absolutely loathe the Coruscant Guard on this channel, and for a variety of reasons. What's less well known is that this opinion was fairly common within the Star Wars universe as well, especially on Coruscant. Most people hated the Coruscant Guard, and the Coruscant Guard hated most people too. The shock troopers charged with protecting the galactic capital detested their jobs, especially when those jobs involved dealing with senators or the inhabitants of Galactic City. We don't really blame them either. The Coruscant Guard had some of the nastiest jobs in the Grand Army of the Republic, and in this video we're going to talk all about them.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Coruscant Guard was formed right after the First Battle of Geonosis, and was an elite force of clone shock troopers tasked with, well, guarding Coruscant. Their duties included protecting senators, defending Galactic City, and managing Republic military installations on Coruscant, all of which sound a lot easier than they actually were. Only Palpatine's most loyal clones were allowed to serve in the Coruscant Guard, ostensibly to ensure that Coruscant was as well protected as possible. In reality, however, the Coruscant Guard was stacked with fervent supporters of Palpatine because the Guard also did a lot of the Chancellor's dirty work. Over the course of the Clone Wars, the Coruscant Guard became the foundation of what would become the Imperial Police State. They were brutally repressive, and the population of Galactic City quickly came to fear the boys in red, nicknaming them Stormtroopers. For what it's worth, clone shock troopers didn't like their jobs any more than the people they terrorized. Though obviously their willing involvement means that we don't exactly feel sorry for them. After all, these are the guys that killed Fives, and we're not going to start being sympathetic just because they sometimes felt bad after beating the frack out of innocent civilians. They probably deserved the unpleasant parts of their job. So what were the unpleasant parts of their jobs? Well, firstly, there was dealing with senators. The Coruscant Guard was tasked with protecting the Galactic Senate, in conjunction with the Senate Commandos, and through the diplomatic escort group they were also assigned to protect senators and other Republic delegates when they traveled off-world. Obviously, this was a very important task, since senators were always at risk of assassination, especially during the Clone Wars. But providing protection from assassins wasn't the hard part of the job. The hard part of the job was trying not to kill the senators themselves.
Observation. Senators are not nice, Master. They are either on top of the game or yesterday's news.
As poor Fives learned, killing was something the Coruscant Guard had a really hard time with on its own, but senators made it even harder. They tended to be whiny, paranoid, treacherous, or some combination therein, and almost all of them acted privileged beyond their due, and out of touch in some way or another. Even worse, shock troopers on senatorial guard duty could have had the misfortune of being assigned to Jar Jar Binks, a fate worse than death. Protecting a person of interest who's extraordinarily annoying would make anyone want to swallow their blaster. To make matters worse, shock troopers constantly had to watch their charges for hints of treachery, due to the nature of the Clone Wars, which was an even bigger pain. But the worst part of it all was that the senators didn't appreciate it at all. Most senators had gotten used to having servants and bodyguards around them at all times, and they usually disregarded them unless they had a problem. While the shock troopers were probably happy to avoid more interaction with senators than they had to have, it also meant that they were often ignored and protected their political valuable charges thanklessly. In fact, many senators outright resented the Coruscant Guard's security measures. After the passage of the Enhanced Security and Enforcement Act in 21 BBY, the Coruscant Guard set up checkpoints all across Galactic City, where shock troopers would ask passers-by to present identification. Senators had an annoying habit of expecting special treatment from the guards at these checkpoints, and of making a fuss when they didn't get it. Even in the Star Wars universe, it seems politicians are politicians. Additionally, most shock troopers assigned to protect senators likely had to coordinate with the senator's own security detail, which would have been a nightmare. This would have been a hell of a job even if the senators themselves weren't all that bad. I mean, imagine being a shock trooper assigned to protect Senator Amidala, only to realize that all of her handmaidens look pretty much identical. It would get even worse if were you later to learn that the senator and one of the handmaidens swapped outfits mid-flight and that you don't know who the frack you're protecting anymore. Lots of senators had those sorts of crazy protection schemes, and for the Coruscant Guard, they would have been just another thing to get in the way of their jobs. This fostered a general hatred for senators that, it should be said, wasn't exclusive to the Coruscant Guard. Pretty much everyone hated senators, but clones in general hated them more than most, and for good reason. After all, it was the senators who decided to keep every last one of them enslaved, and you could imagine that that rubbed a few clones the wrong way. Moreover, most clones detested the Senate in general, seeing it as useless and inefficient. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, most clones believed, was the only one who made the Senate worth fighting for. The Coruscant Guard was also responsible for maintaining all Republic military facilities on Coruscant, including military bases and, unfortunately for the clones, the Republic Judiciary Central Detention Center. A fair few clone troopers ended up serving as glorified prison guards in two facilities, Coruscant's main military base and the Republic's central prison. Now, being a prison guard is another job that really just sucks on its own, but the types of prisoners incarcerated on Coruscant made the whole thing a lot worse. The Central Detention Center was home to galactic-scale criminals, including spice kingpins, underworld leaders, and elite bounty hunters. The prison at the military base wasn't much better, as it mostly contained war criminals. These were dangerous beings who were constantly trying to escape prison, and they were typically powerful enough to be able to bring in elite mercenaries or even separatist military units to do the job. The Coruscant Guard had to be constantly wary about prisoner escape attempts, or even raids on the detention facilities. With that said, as we've been saying, a lot of that was honestly deserved, considering the other usual activities of the Coruscant Guard. So let's take a look at what they did that made them positively awful. The Coruscant Guard was technically a subset of Homeworld Security Command, a hybrid police/military department. As part of Homeworld Security, the Coruscant Guard worked with Galactic City Police to combat the threat of separatist violence on the galactic capital. This threat was very real, in fairness. In the 2 years before the Clone Wars, Coruscant had been subjected to a long string of terrorist bombings committed in the name of Count Dooku, which is what led to the formation of Homeworld Security in the first place. The Coruscant Guard, to their credit, did significantly decrease the number of terrorist attacks on Coruscant over the course of the Clone Wars, but this came at quite a high cost. Homeworld Security was quite paranoid, and it rarely made any distinction between simple dissent and separatism. From the first days of the Clone Wars, it dispatched the Coruscant Guard against protesters, authorizing the use of force even when, in hindsight, it wasn't justified at all. Clone shock troopers brutally dispersed anti-war protests whenever they popped up, as well as more mundane protest movements. For example, when the war began, the Republic military leveled several city blocks to make way for military staging areas, displacing thousands of residents. These residents had nowhere else to go and protested lawfully outside the construction area, hoping to gain some form of reimbursement for their homes. Instead, they got beaten by shock troopers and deported. Not all demonstrations on Coruscant were met with violence from the Coruscant Guard, however. When loyalist nationalists founded the Commission for the Protection of the Republic in 21 BBY, the Coruscant Guard was actually deployed to protect their rallies, despite the fact that Compor was a private organization unaffiliated with the Republic government. This was also despite the fact that Compor seemingly only accepted human applicants and promoted violent anti-alien conspiracy theories. As the Clone Wars went on, the Coruscant Guard started focusing less on stopping threats to planetary security and more on what they considered preventing threats to planetary security. After the passage of the Enhanced Security and Enforcement Act, they got the go-ahead to throw any and all civil liberties to the wind, and you can imagine the results. Coruscant's lower levels were placed under curfews and quarantines, and warrantless surprise raids on lower city homes became commonplace. The Coruscant Guard became Palpatine's secret police, terrorizing the population of Galactic City indiscriminately to keep Coruscant's underclass in check. The Coruscant Guard was nothing short of viciously oppressive. They were the Empire before there was an Empire, stormtroopers before there were stormtroopers. There's no denying that their jobs sucked, and that most of the clones who served in the Guard probably hated their lives. But if your life is spent beating up random aliens in their own homes for no reason, then you honestly should hate your life. The Coruscant Guard didn't just have Five's bloods on its hands. After all, there were thousands, if not millions, of beings who suffered unjustly because of them. So that's why the Coruscant Guard hated their lives and also why they deserved their lot. But what do you think? On a scale of 1 to 5s, how much do you hate the Coruscant Guard? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comments below.